This fresh coat of the startup life has been sprayed on nice and smooth by Wagner and the Flexo series of paint sprayers. Startup Nation, my wife decided she wanted to rehab her childhood home. The goal was to fix it up and invite a nice family to rent it out. We knew one of the biggest jobs we had to undertake was painting. However, from the walls, the cabinets, and even the siding outside, it was going to be a big task. As entrepreneurs with a company to run, we knew this was going to take up a lot of our time, which is why we decided to get a paint sprayer. And after much research, we decided to go with the sprayer from the Flexio series from Wagner. Startup Nation, these sprayers are top-notch because of its flexibility to paint or stain walls, furniture, cabinets, and more. It's 10 times faster than using a paintbrush, which was a big selling point for us. And you can paint or stain right from the can. It's also easy to clean in 5 minutes, and being great for indoor and outdoor projects, a paint sprayer from the Flexio series clearly needs to be part of the arsenal in your garage. So if you're ready to stain your deck, or like me, fill your daughter's request of a bubblegum pink room, up your game with a paint sprayer from the Flexio series by Wagner. Take it from me, your time will thank you.
It's time to be about that life, the startup life. Here's your host, Dominic Lawson.
All right, Startup Nation, so I hope you're ready to receive some value today. My name is Dominic Lawson, and this is The Startup Life, the show for entrepreneurs and career-minded professionals. You know, Startup Nation, the coronavirus outbreak presents unprecedented challenges for small businesses, causing many of them to even close their doors for good. Our guest today is calling on small business leaders to join forces, educate one another, and find tangible solutions for tomorrow. She is a graduate of the University of Missouri, received her master's at Washington University of St. Louis. We like to call it WashU in St. Louis, and currently a doctoral student at the University of Chicago. She is a multi-year winner of the St. Louis Small Business Monthly Business Best Consulting Firm. She's also the founder and CEO of Black Dress Circle, where she incites and propels expansion in women's entrepreneurial businesses, and she is the author of The Anatomy of Accomplishment, Your Guide to Bigger, Better, Bolder Business Results. She is Erin Joy. Erin, how are you today, ma'am?
Oh, Dominic, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for the invitation to be a guest here on your amazing radio show / podcast.
I appreciate
I love
that.
it.
Now, awesome,
Yes.
awesome. So glad to have you here on the show for sure. Are you ready to pour some knowledge into Startup Nation today?
Always. I am here to answer all the questions I possibly can, contribute in any way I can. That's really my jam. You know, it's what I have dedicated my life to, is to make a positive impact where I can. And entrepreneurship is my thing. I'm deep into this world and have been for 25 years.
Wow.
So I'm ready to go.
All righty, let's do it. So if you would, Erin, just kind of share with us your origin story and your background, and just kind of share with us, how it was growing up.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a small town in Illinois, and that's relevant because my parents were entrepreneurs.
Okay.
My parents, they both together owned some businesses together, started from nothing.
Gotcha.
I mean, nothing in the dining room of our, childhood home. And, they had both been teachers and educators, but kind of saw their friends kind of getting ahead in life by being in the insurance business as an independent insurance agent with their own agencies.
Gotcha.
And so my parents, when I was very young, I was in elementary school when they started their business. And I think that I got the entrepreneurial bug pretty early. I saw my parents, certainly improve their station in life. And I saw them, being able to call the shots with their own calendar and their own schedule. And I loved that. And so when I graduated college, I went home to work for them for one summer, it just became evident to me that I should just get into business for myself. This is great. This is what I want to do. And I started out in real estate. They owned a real estate agency at the time. And I started out in as a real estate agent, and I've never looked back. I've been self-employed and I've been an entrepreneur ever since.
I hear that. You said that both of your parents were teachers, correct?
They were, yes.
What did they teach?
So my dad was a football coach, and he was a typing teacher of all things back when we had actual typewriters, not keyboards.
Right.
And my mother owned a preschool. So she had previously done some special education, and then she opened her own preschool um, at a time when banks would not lend to women unless their husbands signed on the loan. And my mother refused. So she was able to open her preschool, get a loan without a co-signature from a male, spouse.
Right.
And, I think that kind of that spirit, it really is what startup founders, what entrepreneurs have to have, which is I'm not taking no for an answer.
Right.
And I'm not going to just, kind of follow along down this path the way that maybe other people would because they're rule followers. Startup founders, entrepreneurs are rule breakers.
Absolutely.
And we tend to create our own rules. And that's part of our makeup. The vast majority of society works in a company, in a corporation. It's unusual to be someone who's willing to take the risks and pour every aspect of yourself into a business, and kind of go against the grain. But that's exactly what founders and entrepreneurs do.
Right, for sure. And I imagine, because I know for what you do in Black Dress Circle, where you empower, women entrepreneurs and things of that nature, and seeing your mom kind of go through that, saying that, like, no, I'm not taking that answer, as far as like trying to get that loan, haven't needed a man to sign for it and stuff like that. I imagine that had a profound impact on you, that particular piece in general.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of things. Certainly that story,
Right.
story that is part of our family history, just my mother who, in a way, her preschool was kind of a side hustle. And, while my dad was still a football coach and a teacher. And, eventually my parents, when they opened their insurance agency, my dad really was the one who was the driver of the business. And my mother was very clear about his role and her role. And she then moved into a support role. So, my mother supported my dad so that he could go out and, call on all the companies in the region that he would drive to their businesses and have conversations with them and win them over to put their commercial insurance with their company. My mother, on the other hand, was, back at the office. And, I learned from her how to be scrappy about buying used office furniture.
I hear that.
And, right?
Right.
And how to, get really creative to create. I remember, growing up and painting in our backyard the signage that was going up on the building that they had leased. And my mother owned, knee pads and elbow pads, so that even when they moved into their nice new office building, 10, 15 years later, and someone had to climb under the building in the crawl space to wire the building for more, computer workstations, my mom crawled under the building with her knee pads and her elbow pads to wire that building.
Right.
And so I just come from very, hardworking, scrappy people.
Right.
And I think that most entrepreneurs and startup founders are hardworking, scrappy people. And one of the things that I have found through the years is that there's no substitute for those street smarts, none,
Right.
and my recipe for, my recipe for success, if you will,
Right.
is combining those street smarts with academics. As you mentioned, I'm working on my Ph.D. I've got nothing left but my dissertation. That's the last piece.
Nice.
And yes, and I'm at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, not the University of Chicago.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. The Chicago School of Professional Psychology. So I just want to be rigorous about it because
sure.
My school is not as prestigious as the University of Chicago, and I wouldn't want to be inauthentic by
Gotcha.
taking some of that University of Chicago credibility. I think that for me, the winning combo is street smarts and academics, street smarts and learning business models from podcasts and books and, different online resources. And I think that's a really winning combo.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate All of that for sure. I want to ask you this because right before we started our conversation, you were saying that, you had a client on the phone and stuff like that. You were
I
trying to
did.
kind
Yes,
of
I was
help.
running a little late.
Yeah,
Yes.
no worries. But you said
Yes.
it was a bit of an emergency a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about what you, not necessarily what the particulars are, but like when you get
Yeah,
a
sure.
call like that, what's the
Hmm.
game plan here? Because it's like probably wasn't a scheduled call and it just kind of
It
come
was
out of
not.
the blue. So kind of walk me through that process a little bit.
Yeah, so my agreement with my clients is that they pay a monthly membership to be in my Black Dress Circle roundtables,
Right.
and I tell them, you can text me, you can call me, you can email me anytime you need me, and those calls that are kind of on the fly
Mm-hmm.
are at no charge.
Got you.
And so I always want my clients to have a sounding board when they're up against the wall. Their back's up against the wall. They've got to make a decision, or something's going sideways in their business.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a recipe for disaster to handle those things alone.
Right.
Even if all you want to do is validate your thinking with a thought partner. And so this particular client, it was so great. She sent me a text. She says, I told myself I would never text you in an emergency, but here I am. And I need some help like ASAP.
Right.
I said, great. I tried to push it off until lunch. She couldn't talk until then. I said, all right, how about 10:55 a.m.? You and I were scheduled to talk at 11. I needed a few more minutes. Anyway, we got on the phone at 10:55 and she said that, she just got herself a little bit tangled up and in a business kind of around some partnerships. And I don't mean business partners, but I mean like strategic partners.
Right.
And she's going to have to have a conversation with a strategic partner that she has been wanting to avoid. She has been avoiding it. She has not wanted to have it. And now she has to have it today because of another move that she made. And she explained to me that she was thinking about kind of sugarcoating it and saying it this way. And, my coaching to her was, no. Let's hit it right between the eyeballs.
Right.
You have to be clear about your intention. And her intention is to communicate very clearly, very powerfully, just put on the table exactly what it is that she needs to discuss with this strategic partner, even if the partner isn't going to like it. And dancing around the issue and sugarcoating it is just going to make it worse. So own up and have the conversation and keep me informed and let's let the chips fall where they may.
Absolutely.
So I think that one of the things that startup founders and entrepreneurs do that is really detrimental, and I totally understand it because entrepreneurship is it's an inside job and it's oftentimes a solo job.
Right.
Yes, you might have some business partners, maybe, but I mean, the vast majority of founders and entrepreneurs do not. And so the need for a trusted advisor and the need for peers who are fellow entrepreneurs who understand you and your business, having those people, on your quick dial on your phone is critical. It's absolutely critical.
Right.
Because again, when your back is against the wall and you can't see clearly, you need someone in there kind of in the dark with you who can see clearly and can ask you questions and point things out to you. And before you know it, the entrepreneur is, coming out of the dark. And I think that too many entrepreneurs are siloed and they are alone and they they don't have the resources around them.
Right.
They don't have people, to lean on who they really trust. And you have to build those, like we're all learning in the coronavirus era.
Right. Absolutely.
You have to build those relationships before you need them. When you need them, again, when your back is against the wall, it's sometimes too late. There were a whole lot of business owners who could not find a bank to help them with the payment protection program loan.
Right.
That was a huge part of the stimulus package, and it's a forgivable loan. And there were business owners that could not find a bank to help them because they didn't already have those relationships before they needed them. So I'll tell you one thing I would share with your, startup founder nation is to build those relationships now, build your network now. You have to know who to go to for what situations you face. And it's kind of like when people they talk about, getting a line of credit as a business owner. Get a line of credit before you need it.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many clients I have, recommended that through to the years. Some of them have done it, some have not. Now, when the virus hit, the pandemic hit, there were a whole bunch of people whose income dried up. And I guarantee you they were wishing
Right.
that they had a line of credit that they could have tapped to pay their rent, to
Right.
pay their employees, to make their car payment. And so that rule of thumb of, get the line of credit before you need it, I think that applies to get your banker, get your attorney, get your marketing company. You got to get these resources in place before you need them. Because when you need them, it's too late.
Absolutely. And I can tell you come from an insurance background and your family comes from an insurance background.
Yes.
That's exactly what they say about insurance, right? And I'm glad.
Exactly.
I'm glad you sent that for sure, because I imagine you're probably getting a more uptick in calls, but due to the coronavirus or COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, I imagine you're getting more and more of these phone calls. Because we're seeing so many startup founders who are, like you said earlier, closing the doors because those relationships, that infrastructure wasn't in place beforehand. And now that you need it, it's a little bit too late for some. Some have been able to kind of, stem the tide a little bit, but then others, are, finding themselves in a world of hurt. And these are not just startup founders. We're seeing big companies. We're seeing the Chuck E. Cheeses. We're seeing Hertz that are kind of feeling the burn a little bit. So, from a particular standpoint of seeing as that we've never seen something like this before, what are some of those other things you're sharing with your clients, due to these, the coronavirus pandemic and the economic kind of recession we're in right now, Erin?
Well, I'll go a little bit of a different direction with my answer. It might surprise you a little bit in that, we are, as at the time of our recording, we are about 15 weeks into the pandemic, at least here in the Midwest.
Right.
And, my life looked very different 16 weeks ago compared to where I am today.
Right.
The week before the pandemic, it was business as usual. And I was on a trajectory to, franchise my business and to take Black Dress Circle to other women in other markets through a franchise model. And 15 weeks later, after really reflecting on the changing needs of my market, my changes and what I'm interested in and not interested in, we're totally transforming our business model for the better. Right. Things that I would have held on to fiercely going back again 16 weeks ago, I am now letting go of. And so that is a common conversation that I'm now having with my clients, which is let go. Just let go. I know that you think that your business can only do X, Y, and Z services, but there's so much more possible. And there's so much more that, could very much make sense for your business to make your business even more healthy and more successful. And I think it's really hard to let go of, entrepreneurs, your founders, my entrepreneur clients. We have to be so committed to our vision that when it comes time to loosen the grip and to let go a little, it can be very hard for people. But here's one of the ways that I'm framing it right now. So I think that just because it was something that I created and had planned for in the past, and I am letting go of it, doesn't mean that I was wrong to have created that in the past, or that was the wrong path for me. It's just that now I have so much more information, and
the context has changed.
The context has changed. That's exactly right. Society is transforming, and so you can either hold on and try to just execute on who you were before, or you can let go and embrace the new context and create something new. And so that is very much the phase that we are in. And I intend to stay in this phase for about another year. I want to take about a year to continue to reassess aspects of my business and create new service offerings and new workflows, and I want to bring in more automation, and I want to bring in artificial intelligence, and I really want to change our ways. So those are some of the things that I'm talking about with clients right now, in addition to nuts and bolts around business strategy and financial strategies too, which the number one financial strategy right now is cash is king and queen. Hoard cash.
Absolutely.
So, so that's a little bit about what we're talking about with clients today.
For sure. And I wrote down a few words here, and the one that really sticks out based on what you were saying just now is introspection. And it was really looking and reassessing things and seeing, not necessarily question the original vision, but also just make sure we're on the right path and not be afraid to let go. As you say, just like a very famous Disney movie. For sure.
That's right. That's right.
For sure. Once again, we're talking to Erin Joy, the founder and CEO of Black Dress Circle. But I want to talk about your book a little bit. Let me make sure. Where is it?
It's got a long title. It's got a long title. You're searching for the title.
No, I actually have it written down. I was just that my window pane was taking a little long.
Yes, of course.
For sure. I want to talk to you about your book. In Startup Nation, the book is The Anatomy of Accomplishment, your guide to bigger, better, bolder business results. We actually have a link in the show notes for easy access if you want to purchase that. If you want to listen to the replay on the podcast, we have a link there in the show notes for easy access to make that purchase. Kind of talk about the book a little bit and how it came about.
Yeah. Well, the book is really symbolic of my interest in women entrepreneurs, my commitment to women entrepreneurs. We have, in our book, we have 19 chapters and 19 authors. And we have women from all over the country. We have Phoenix and San Francisco and New York and Miami and St. Louis, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri. We have authors from Wisconsin and Atlanta.
Right.
I mean, all over the country. Women came together and said, I want to tell a story. I want to tell my story about, maybe it's about how to network like a pro, or maybe it's a story about, I just had an interview yesterday with one of the authors who wrote about how she's always played for the long game. That when she started her company, she was always thinking 5, 10, 20 years ahead.
Right. And
so we have 18 amazing, very accomplished women entrepreneurs who have written a chapter. And chapters are on everything from marketing to, being an African-American woman in technology, to, my chapter is all about strategy and how strategy, guides everything that I do, strategic thinking. And so the book, you said, how did the book come to be? I had an opportunity presented to me by an amazing company who works on these kinds of anthology projects where there are multiple authors. And it was an opportunity that fell in my lap that when I thought about the long game that I'm playing, when I thought about the ways that I want to continue to build my brand and my credibility and my reputation, a book is a really important part of that. And so I thought this just makes so much sense because, with my with my Ph.D., it's that's the writing that I'm doing. That's the major writing project that I'm doing. It's going to be a while until, I write books for the public, where I can write the whole book myself. So writing a, one chapter and being the curator of the book, pulling the whole thing together has just been an amazing kind of win-win, and that's something I would bring to your Startup Nation is thinking about, that things don't have to be black and white. It's not like I'm either going to write a book or I'm not. There are hybrid models. There's a lot of gray. And so for me, this was the perfect way to have a book and to be a published author without diverting attention, major amounts of attention, I should say, from my dissertation.
Absolutely.
So we have to get really comfortable as founders dancing in the gray.
Absolutely. And being strategic. as you would say,
Yes.
as well, because I think that's it's super important, especially in this day and age, as of this recording and stuff like that, because, that rigidity can really get you in trouble, and not being able to kind of pivot and stuff like that, but also just thinking outside the box, because I know a lot of times I get, inspired by things that have nothing to do with podcasting. It's like, oh, okay, that's kind of different. So I bring that strategy or strategic mindset to the show and stuff like that. So I appreciate you sharing that for sure.
Totally agree.
Absolutely.
Totally agree. I think we could, to your point about being strategic and looking outside of your industry for inspiration, for knowledge, for
Right.
marketing ideas, applying those things to your business. That is something I am always recommending to my clients and to entrepreneurs, is to surround yourself not only with people who are in your industry. Those relationships are very important as well, but people outside your industry who do things differently, and they do things in a way that you could too, that could be perhaps better than the way that your industry tackles things. And so, again, going back to surrounding ourselves with peers who are both industry peers as well as non-industry peers.
Right.
It's really critical.
For sure, for sure. And Startup Nation, when you go through the book, like you said, there's many amazing stories, and you mentioned the one, about the young lady in tech, black girl in Techlandia. Kind of share with us a little bit about that story, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so it's a really powerful woman entrepreneur who, got started in tech when women weren't in technology,
right,
and when women of color were not as welcomed in technology.
right.
And, our author shares about the moves that she had to make and relationships that she had to navigate, to be successful. I think that one thing that all entrepreneurs learn along the way is that we have to have thick skin to handle, the naysayers, the negative feedback, the people who think that we're a little bit out there, that we have such big ideas, can't we just settle down a little bit? And so that's exactly what Adonica shares about in her chapter, in The Anatomy of Accomplishment. And I personally, I think that books like this, podcasts like yours, they are such a critical part for entrepreneurs to know that, we're not alone. Right. You're not alone. Right. The issues that you're facing, other people are facing them as well. And so, I think that I personally think that we can't get enough good content in the form of podcasts, in the form of books, in the form of courses, whatever the case may be, conversations with our peers, with our trusted advisors.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, as far as like, you're not in this alone. And I think many of us, when we hear like, the big names in entrepreneurship and stuff like that, and we hear some of their stories, but even when we hear some of the stories amongst our peers, I think that proof of concept is the same. Not necessarily the proof of concept of like success, but the proof of concept of failure, which reminds you like, okay, they didn't have like this elevator ride up to the top. No. There were bumps and bruises and stuff like that. And I think people who are just starting out, especially those startup founders, can definitely relate to that. And I think that's just as important to hear those failures as it is to hear the successes of everybody else. So I'm glad you said that.
I totally agree with you, Dominic. And that's really the cornerstone of our company at Black Dress Circle.
Right.
Our flagship offering is our entrepreneur roundtables, where women entrepreneurs come together and learn from each other. And what you're speaking to is exactly what they're there to learn. They want to learn, hey, what did not work for you? So let's just take an example like, hey, when you were having to separate with your business partner, what did you learn and what did not work? Because I want to learn from you and shorten my learning curve and have your pain that you experienced when you separated from that partner not go to waste, but you can actually make a difference for other entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
And so I think that it's one thing and I think it's extremely valuable to hear those. To your point, those failures, it's just as valuable to hear, what does work, what did work for you. And that's why there's just no substitute for a strong peer network of, again, both industry peers and non-industry peers.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And Startup Nation, when you go to blackdresscircle.com, there's tons of, content from the videos that she has, but also where you can sign up to be a part of those workshops, part of those events. I imagine a lot of them are virtual these days, but
They sure are.
You could definitely be a part of that. But go to blackdresscircle.com. We have a link there in the show notes for easy access if you're listening to the replay on the podcast. So, Erin, when we signed up for one of these, round table events or round table table talks, if you will, and stuff like that, kind of walk me through what, we get to experience a little bit as far as like, the type of content, the type of, not just the you can do it type of content, but also like those tangible tools in building a business and working around, adversity in business and things of that nature.
Yeah, sure. Well, our program really is founded on two main kind of distinctions. One is that entrepreneurs do extremely well in an environment where they get that, like you just said, you can do it, where they get that social support coupled with training and education.
Gotcha.
And so that's exactly what we bring to the table, so to speak, in our Black Dress Circle Entrepreneur Roundtables. And so when our clients come together once a month, and to your point, right now it's virtual. Actually, right now it's virtual, and we broke our long sessions up into 2 times per month.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because folks are having a hard time taking a half day away from their office right now.
Understood.
So we're doing 2-hour sessions at once right now. Anyway, we start by reminding everyone that what we talk about there is confidential. And that is part of the magic of Black Dress Circle roundtables, is that there are no clients at the table. If you have, you can't be in a roundtable with someone who is your client, and there are no competitors at the table. So it really is a very safe space where entrepreneurs and founders can let their hair down. They can talk about what's really going on in their business, what's really going on in their life. They can get that you can do it support. But they also get training. Every single month, I develop some piece of content from both my street smarts and my academic pursuits that I bring to the table. And entrepreneurs, one of the things we need, in addition to peer support, in addition to having the right advisors, we need training and education. That's something that corporations have that, is such a competitive advantage over entrepreneurs and business owners, is that they have access to so much more training and development. And so entrepreneurs really need to pull that to them. Right. So I train my clients on everything from how to delegate, what gets in the way of delegation, what to delegate, to time management, to business strategies. We regularly do business plan reviews so that business owners can kind of look back to see, hey, these are the goals I set out for the year, and I'm at the end of the first quarter. How am I doing?
Right.
And a lot of folks, just don't and won't do that on their own, and that's normal. Right. So that's what we really exist to help provide, is that framework for entrepreneurs to get the support that they need and the training that they need.
All right, Startup Nation. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We got to pay some bills. Once again, my name is Dominic Lawson, and you're listening to The Startup Life. This fresh coat of the Startup Life has been sprayed on nice and smooth by Wagner and the Flexel series of paint sprayers. Startup Nation, my wife decided she wanted to rehab her childhood home. The goal was to fix it up and invite a nice family to rent it out. We knew one of the biggest jobs we had to undertake was painting. However, from the walls, the cabinets, and even the siding outside, it was going to be a big task. As entrepreneurs with a company to run, we knew this was going to take up a lot of our time, which is why we decided to get a paint sprayer. And after much research, we decided to go with the sprayer from the Flexio series from Wagner. Startup Nation, these sprayers are top-notch because of its flexibility to paint or stain walls, furniture, cabinets, and more. It's 10 times faster than using a paintbrush which was a big selling point for us. And you can paint or stain right from the can. It's also easy to clean in 5 minutes, and being great for indoor and outdoor projects, a paint sprayer from the Flexio series clearly needs to be part of the arsenal in your garage. So if you're ready to stain your deck, or like me, fill your daughter's request of a bubblegum pink room, up your game with a paint sprayer from the Flexio series by Wagner. Take it from me, your time will thank you. The Startup Life is powered by Ladder. Startup Nation, as an entrepreneur, you are the engine that powers your business. We have had many entrepreneurs on the show, from those that played Division II basketball, quite a few Ironman participants, and even an NFL quarterback. And the one thing they all have in common is that they know getting early morning workout wins leads to business success for the day. However, it's super important what fuel you use for your workout to get that early morning success. And that's where Ladder comes in. Ladder is a sports nutrition company founded by LeBron James and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Unlike other supplements, every batch is tested by a third party that is trusted by all major professional sports organizations, including the NBA, NFL, MLB, and more, to verify the highest standards for quality, but more importantly, safety. Ladder's goal is to help you unlock your best in any situation. Right now, that means access to special offers and expert advice from their community. Personally, I like superfood greens. Not only does it include the most essential nutrients that are hard to get in your diet, like magnesium, zinc, B vitamins, and vitamin D, they also included the Rodelio root, which helps keep you healthier when stress is high, but also it helps support immunity according to many studies. Use code BETTEREVERYDAY for 30% off everything site-wide at ladder.sport. That's BETTEREVERYDAY for 30% off at ladder.sport. So maybe you're not trying to be a 4-time league MVP or a 7-time Mr. Olympia, but you still need the tools to elevate your health that elevates your business. So go with Ladder and prepare to get better every day. All right, Startup Nation, welcome back as we continue our conversation with today's guest here on The Startup Life. You know, Startup Nation, I'm actually on Erin Joy's Facebook page, Erin Joy STL. And so, and you do videos there as well. And they're probably a little different sort than what you do, have on your website and stuff like that. But I want to talk about how, because one of the things that we're starting to see is, we talk about workplace etiquette, but now we're starting to see more and more about video and virtual etiquette as well. Like, what to have in the background and, how to be presentable virtually when giving presentations and stuff like that. And I just have to say, I love your background. I guess it's maybe your living room or
it's my living room. Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. And it's
I have a teeny tiny house, and I'm sitting on all my videos. Most of my videos, at least, I'm sitting in what used to be my dining room and is now my home office.
Right.
And I would say that my kitchen is about 3 feet from where I'm sitting.
Gotcha.
And then my living room starts about 3 feet behind me. So it's a tiny, tiny space, but it turns out that it's playing well for video. And, it's a very comfy and cozy space. And I think there's something to be said for people being able to see your personal space. Now, that works for some, that makes sense for some people and their brands, and not for others.
Gotcha.
For me and for my brand and for how I intend to connect deeply with people, part of my approach is to be very open. I'm an open book. And you'll see, in fact, on the Facebook Live that I did today, I got a little teary-eyed when I was talking about. So today's Facebook Live was the last in the coronavirus series of kind of phase 1. I came out with a Facebook Live every single morning when the virus hit here in the Midwest. Monday, March 16th, I did Facebook Live just answering questions and, bringing information and inspiration to my audience and to my community.
Right.
And so I have a very, I have an interest in being very open and transparent with all the work that I do. So I like letting people in and letting them really see my home. And for some people that may not make sense, but it's what's right for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I wanted to comment because your space is warm and inviting, even though it's virtually, it's very warm and inviting. And I wanted to ask you this, even if it's somebody, that's that kind of does something similar to what you do. What are some of those, like, maybe do's and don'ts when you're giving a virtual, presentation, or you even, maybe working a 9 to 5 and you're in a virtual meeting with your company? What are some of those do's and don'ts in your opinion?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is that, and it's such a simple thing, but folks have got to get the angle on their computers just so,
Right.
and get their lighting down. So people have commented on, the look of my videos, and so that's because I have great natural light in my space, but I also have a ring light,
Right.
and it's shining right down on me when I'm producing video. And my laptop is up on a laptop stand with an external camera.
Mm-hmm.
I use the Logitech HD 10. I think it's Logitech 1030 is the name of it.
Okay.
Could be 1040, but it's a great camera, and so I have good quality of camera, and I have it at the right angle up on a laptop stand, so I can get that right angle.
Right.
I have the ring light,
Mm-hmm.
and I have an external microphone. So you can buy an Audio Technica 2020. It's a great microphone, the Audio Technica 2020 USB, and it needs no software, no nothing. You literally just plug it in and it's ready to be used, and it then presents, great sound. So I know that it takes a little bit of investment.
Right.
I would encourage people to just chip away a little bit at a time, like any other major project. You know what they say? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's right. That's right. So, maybe you spend the $80 on a ring light first, and then you eventually add your microphone. I think this microphone was maybe around $100. So, these things can seem more complicated than they are.
Right.
But that has made a big difference for me on video quality. And then I think the other thing is just being very comfortable with, muting yourself, turning your camera on and off, just to respect the other people on the call. It's a good rule of thumb that if you're not speaking, that you're muted.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I think those are some of the things that I do that are having, those online efforts work.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned all of that. I think also, and I don't know why we need to remind people of this, because we're seeing more and more people, and we're seeing viral moments of people being on these virtual meetings and not wearing pants or something like that,
right.
Something embarrassing like that. But I'm glad you said the part about, the type of camera that you use and the ring light and stuff like that. Because I imagine if you're in this space and this is something that kind of accentuates your brand, Startup Nation, you need to make that investment, because I'm looking at Erin's video and it's clear. It looks like it's, shot by NBC or some major studio or something like that. But I think that's important to make that investment. And I want to put you on the spot here, Erin, just a little bit, because I'm looking at the video that you made just this morning, and somebody commented, and I want to read one of those comments really quickly. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's pretty long, but it says, "Thank you for the motivation you have provided for so many over the last 15 weeks. Your videos have been a great way to start the day. You're spot on that we have to reconsider the way we've been conducting business." So, Erin, I just want to put you on the spot here a little bit. When you hear comments like that to videos and just other testimonials and like that, what does that mean to you?
Well, it means that I am fulfilling my commitment. I am fulfilling on my mission. About 20 years ago, I literally dedicated my life. Like, I made a statement that I was dedicating my life to greatness in humanity, that people are great and they're amazing. And I want to fuel that. I want to be someone who unleashes that in people in any way that they are held back. Right. And so what it says to me is that I am, that my mission is being fulfilled. It's in the process of being fulfilled, that I am on the right track, and that, that if I keep listening to what people need and want and respond to that, I shift and pivot and adjust and notice what is needed and provide it, that that my commitment will be fulfilled. And I think that right now as we're in the pandemic and as society is transforming, as business is transforming, we're experiencing a digital transformation. I think that the more we can listen and be open to making, pivots and adjustments to serve people where they need to be served and how they need to be served. That's really the name of the game. People's needs are changing. And, what we were holding on to about our past and the way that it was, may not be relevant anymore. So it just, I'm deeply honored when people take the time to say things like that. It really gives me the fuel to keep going.
Absolutely. I hope it was okay to ask you about that.
Yes, definitely.
That comment literally just popped up, and so I wanted to kind of get that in real time for sure. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to ask you this because you talked about your parents being in education, and you're kind of an educator in that regard, as well for what you do in Black Dress Circle and things of that nature. I want to ask you this. What's your teaching style? Are you the funny one? Are you the informative one? Are you the inspiring one? Like, what's your teaching style if I were to ask one of your clients?
I think my clients would tell you that I present from both my street smarts as well as my academic experience.
Okay.
And what I've always done, Dominic, since I've been in higher education starting about 9 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, 9 years ago now. So I've always scaled what I've learned in academia to small business. Most of, at least business academics, are housed and kind of framed inside of large corporations. And so I just bring my kind of scrappy style to my presenting style, my teaching style. My style is very much like we're talking about right now.
Right.
I share my experience, and I share what I've learned and what the research supports.
Right.
But I would say, I have a pretty informal style. And I always use my own self and my own business as an example, because I've got nothing to hide. And so, people like to, I'm constantly sharing with my clients, hey, here's my strategy. So watch this strategy unfold over the next several months and, rip it off and apply it in your own business. So watch how I do this and this and this, and they're all knitted together. And how could you do that in your business or your version of that? So that's my style. I just kind of open up, my business plan and share what I'm learning and, keep giving it back to my community.
I hear that. Thank you for sharing all of that for sure. When I was looking at the book, Erin, I saw, where you talked about the 8 success levers for the strategic entrepreneurs. And one of those you were talking about timeline, and you actually talked about using the strategy of a timeline about like playing pool. So so for somebody to bring that up in a book, I have to ask if you were a pool player or you like to play billiards from time to time. 'Cause that doesn't seem.
No, but
okay, go ahead.
No, but I love the analogy,
Right.
and I
Right.
think I do love a lot of recreation and I have a variety of interests outside of business for sure, and
Right.
outside of my academics. I love the analogy that you can see it in pool, you can see it in hockey, you can see it, in baseball.
Right.
You certainly can see it in business, and that is that you've got to look not where that pool shot is about to go, just on that first shot, but what happens to the other balls that you're going to hit when you are aiming to take that shot. And is it best to take a straight shot, or is it best to take a little bit of a side route to accomplish what you want to accomplish? And sometimes the right path is that side route. Sometimes it's a straight shot. And I think that the key is to be able to slow down and think critically about what the right shot is.
Absolutely.
And it's not always just, one for one. I've got a cue ball, I've got a pool stick, and I'm going to hit that ball into that pocket. It might be, I need to hit that ball just a little bit because that's going to set up my next shot. And entrepreneurs tend to be impatient. That's across the board. We tend to be an impatient people because we are so passionate about doing what we have set out to do. But sometimes we've got to be patient and take some steps today that we're going to, harvest or benefit from, months or years down the road.
I hear that. I hear that. Thank you for sharing all of that for sure. I want to ask you this really quickly because I saw also on your Facebook timeline where, you kind of shared, and this is from a few weeks ago, where you shared like a symposium of African-American women kind of talking about, the kind of the social unrest that we have in our country right now. And even in your book, you highlight, some of the stories come from, prominent African-American women telling their story and stuff like that. Is that something that's, that you kind of wanted to push? Is that something that's kind of, you want to kind of share with the world? Kind of share with me a little bit about that.
Well, we knew when we created this book that we wanted to have diversity in terms of geography, background, and ethnic diversity.
Right.
And there's a lot of research that shows that in publicly traded companies, for example, the companies that have women on their boards, that have diversity on their boards, they financially outperform companies that don't have that diversity.
Right.
And so we know that, I want to bring forth, the best products, the best services. I want to be a responsible corporate citizen.
I hear that.
And and so it's my duty to shine the spotlight on as many people as possible and as many diverse people as possible. And when the social unrest that we are experiencing right now in the United States and in the world really came to the forefront.
Right.
White people like me, became uncomfortable with our silence.
Gotcha.
I became uncomfortable with my silence, with my complacency about how our society has been constructed.
Gotcha.
And so I definitely, am interested in using my platform. My platform is made up of all kinds of things. It's our conversation right here, right now. It's
Absolutely.
my social media accounts. It's my speaking engagements.
Absolutely.
It's the book. It's all the things. I became very interested in and downright committed to using my platform to do what I can do in my area of the world to fight for equality. And so I have a long way to go. And I came out and made a statement in early June that Black Lives Matter, and they do, and that I, reject police brutality. I reject racism. And I am taking on the mission that so many white people are taking on, and so many people of color have already been championing.
Right.
And that's to be anti-racist.
Got you.
So it is all intentional because, the more you, I think, grow and have attention, the more there is a responsibility to use that for good.
I hear that.
And so I'm just getting started. I've got a long way to go. I have a call with a consultant next week, in fact, who's going to kind of look at my business and look at, what are some ways that I can make a positive impact in equality. And in my case, it would be inequality for African-American women entrepreneurs. What can I do to create a more level playing field? Because the playing field is so far from level.
I appreciate that. As an African-American myself, I definitely appreciate everything you just said and the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for that, Erin, for sure. On a lighter note, though, I want to ask you this, because you talked about you have some other recreational interests and stuff like that. What are those?
I love that question. That's so fun. Well, so it's kind of funny because when people see my photos and my professional, persona, they would not guess that I love to go to yard sales and thrift stores.
Okay.
They would not guess that I'm a camper, but I grew up camping with my family in my hometown.
Right.
When, my family had no money for recreation, we camped all summer, every summer, on the weekends, at least I should say, for 13 years in the same campground on the same water, same body of water, I should say, the same lake. Mm-hmm. And so I'm a camper. I grew up as a camper. And when the virus hit, and I was noticing, kind of how intensely I was working. I knew I needed to build in some pretty serious breaks for myself. So I stocked up on a bunch of camping gear.
Okay.
And my daughter and I, every weekend that we are together, which is 6 weekends this summer, we are loading up the car with our camping gear, our bicycles. We just bought an inflatable kayak.
Oh,
We bought
wow.
a frisbee. Like, we are getting all into even more outdoor recreation.
Got you.
And, just a couple days in the woods and nature, just my daughter and I, sleeping in a tent, cooking on the campfire, going for hikes, going for a little kayak ride around the lake. That's just so restorative. And, my area of study as an academic is in the area of success and well-being
Right.
among entrepreneurs. And I'm very curious how entrepreneurs use well-being or wellness to fuel their success. And so I really challenge myself to sort of walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And so I'm pretty fanatical about taking care of myself and getting outside and exercising and unplugging, because that's good for business.
I hear that.
Going camping this weekend is good for business because
Absolutely.
I come back refreshed, recharged. I've had a change of pace, a change of scenery, so I can think differently, think more strategically. So those are some of the things that I'm into, at least right now.
So I want to ask you this because, you talked about going to yard sales and thrift stores and stuff like that. Have you ever come across like an amazing find? Like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I found this. Have you ever come across
Oh,
anything like that?
so many. I mean,
Okay.
where do I even begin? So when
Okay.
you look at my home, like you were just talking about my videos,
Right.
there's only one piece of furniture in my entire house that is brand spanking new.
Okay.
I mean, everything that I own is vintage and repurposed, and maybe even family history. I mean, I'm
Gotcha.
looking at this sofa right here that a really high quality, very comfortable, beautiful sofa that, rather than trying to buy some cheap piece of junk, that would fit my budget
Right.
from a brand new store. I got this from one of my clients whose business is in furniture resale.
Oh, okay.
So, I probably paid $700 for a $3,000 sofa.
Wow.
I mean, Dominic, there are too many to even try to find. I really avoid paying retail at all costs. And we've said that in the coronavirus era, really pretty much always cash is king and queen.
Right.
And so saving money is so good for business. I know that sounds obvious, but the more money that we have in our savings accounts, the more our stress level decreases. And the more our stress level
That's true.
decreases, the more we can make really powerful boss moves in our businesses. The more we can say no to a client who's not a good fit for us because we're not desperate for income.
Right.
And I've lived a lot of years desperate for income. I've been self-employed for 25 years, and I've had a couple of careers within that time.
Right.
So I save money wherever I possibly can. And the coronavirus pandemic has really reinforced that and has taught me so much about what I really value. And I value having cash in the bank more than I value having a manicure every 3 weeks.
I hear that. I think two things I get from that. First of all, and you said this earlier, but I want to reemphasize the point. Cash is king and queen, Startup Nation. So clearly that's a big, interesting, that's definitely something you want to put in your entrepreneurial toolkit. But also
Yes.
the fact that, you're looking for those treasures when you go through yard sales and stuff like that. That dynamic, that strategic mindset easily applies to your business and stuff like that. And I'm so glad you made that connection, Erin, for sure.
Yeah, it's a great example of being scrappy, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's the same skill set of making it work, making do, figuring out a way, reusing something rather than buying a new one. repurposing things. I think that mentality and that mindset is really good for business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that. And before I ask the last question, I just want to say, Erin, thank you so much for coming on the show. You gave amazing value. Once again, Startup Nation, the website is blackdresscircle.com. And also we have a link to buy Erin's book, The Anatomy of Accomplishment, Your Guide to Bigger, Better, Bolder Business Results. Both of those links, Startup Nation, are in the show notes if you're listening to the replay on the podcast. Now, Erin, I'm actually going to turn the microphone over to you because there's somebody out there in Startup Nation and they're feeling a little discouraged, a little down with everything going on. Give us some words of encouragement to take us out for today, if you would.
Well, this virus is tough. Startup life is tough, and you are tougher. You are so much stronger than than you realize. I think that's the gift of being a startup founder. I think that's the gift of the coronavirus era, is that we are all stripping away the unnecessary stories we have about ourselves, and we are tapping into who we really are and what we really value and what we truly are here to accomplish. And I just want to say that, whatever you want to accomplish, you can do it. You really can do it, but you can't do it alone. And it might not happen on the time frame that you originally conceived, and that's okay. Surround yourself with your peers and surround yourself with trusted advisors, and go make it happen.
I hear that. Awesome stuff. And that's going to wrap up our time on The Startup Life. Erin Joy, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciated your time.
Dominic, thank you so much for the invitation. It was a pleasure.
No worries. And as always, Startup Nation, if you have an idea, be about that life, The Startup Life. If you want to let us know what you think about our show, have an idea for a show topic, or would like to advertise on our show, send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you are there, like and follow our page as well. It's a great way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is there in the show notes. Subscribe to the show as it can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or even on your Facebook timeline or any other platform you like to get your podcast. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. You can also listen to the show on the Startup Life Podcast new website. There you will find the all-new startup blog where I write on many topics that are interesting and helpful to you on your path to entrepreneurship. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life, the startup life.